Hello here. So in today's video, it's actually going to be a long one. In fact, this is going to be a deep analysis of the character Kyoko Kirigiri. And just to clarify, all videos and backgrounds I use are going to be inside the description if you want to check out the YouTubers' channels. Oh, with nothing more to say, let's get the video started.
You got a thing on your head.
You need to eat.
Kyoko Kirigiri. Kyoko Kirigiri's introduction in danganronpa is when you first meet the students inside the game. Now, something's actually off about her introduction. Yeah, you see it? It's the fact that her fucking talent is question mark. Now, after this happens, Kyoko then acts sulky and mysterious about her talent, not willing to tell Makoto. Now you get the impression that Kyoko is this rude, badass, mysterious person that is not willing to tell the talent. Amazing, man. Now, in chapter 1 of danganronpa, we get to see that Kyoko Kirigiri actually becomes a valuable asset in the story in chapter 1. In the chapter 1 investigation, we finally get to see her stand out more as a character, and at least in my eyes, one of the coolest characters up to this moment in danganronpa, in design, personality, and overall scheme of how she's going. Now we're going to move on to the first trial where we see Kirigiri in action.
Rotate the image 180 degrees.
If Kyoko didn't say this, the whole trial would be doomed. Oh my god. Kyoko in this trial and trials ahead of the game, like in chapter 6, is really interesting to me of how she stays quiet the entire trial, but somehow manages the students intact. As in things like chit chat or things that are going off topic. Not that much happened in this chapter, but in the next chapter that we're covering, Kyoko's character gets even more relevant and important throughout the story. So let's go ahead and move that apart. Editor's note here, and I'm actually very sick right now. So if I start stuttering or my voice sounds way different than before, that's the reason why. But let's go ahead and continue the video. Chapter 2 of danganronpa is really interesting. Once again, Kyoko said nothing of the entirety of chapter 2 except the investigation and trial. But my theory is that up until this point, Kyoko is doing her own little investigation and side adventure unlike the rest of the cast. Except this little line in the trial where she says yes to what Makoto said. So yeah. But with nothing more to say, let's go to the trial. This trial is the death of Chihiro Fujisaki. The death of Chihiro Fujisaki. He also messed up the correction, ruined the class trial, and made it even more difficult for the student.
Don't rob me, Katie. I'm just not ready.
And Kyoko Kirigiri says nothing throughout the entire trial and makes very rare highlights. There's actually a very good reason for this. Near part of the trial where we discover that Chihiro is a boy instead of a girl, Kyoko actually starts getting on Mondo, asking him questions. But then Mondo says one singular line that makes him the prime suspect and killer in this case. Listen closely to what he says here.
Specific tracksuit. I got it! He picked that tracksuit because it matched the one the culprit was wearing!
So, what you're saying is, the killer was wearing the same blue tracksuit as him?
No! And even Kyoko gives us a hint that if you didn't shoot Mondo's contradiction, yeah, it's kind of obvious what the contradiction here is. Now, what we'll learn actually is the fact that Kyoko suspected Mondo the entire time of the trial. And this also gives us information of what Kyoko does in trials and her mindset throughout them. I believe her mindset is that she doesn't follow what anyone else says. She thinks her own logic and patterns and doesn't follow behind it. She thinks on her own when making decisions. Plus, it makes Kirigiri more of a reliable person in trials as a backup if something dumb is happening. Plus, the fact that she is very observant of others and notices their patterns. She is very, very observant. Just like how she noticed how Mondo said chicks and dudes to men and women. Chapter 2 had a lot of highlights where Kyoko Kirigiri gets shown to do a lot of more things than chapter 1. But to not yap anymore, let's go ahead and go to chapter 3. Chapter 3 of Danganronpa starts off with Aoi asking. Now Aoi is actually very sad right now, sadly. So since Hina is sad right now, she decides to go get some donuts and goes out to the cafeteria. But so voila, she meets a green light that has a head of Chihiro and is a ghost. Yeah, I don't know what Hina was looking at when she saw a green light with a head of Chihiro, but alright. She then proceeds to go to the cafeteria and explain to the others that she saw a quote-unquote ghost, which I mean, I guess. And the others proceed to go inside the sauna room, and it was actually a computer of Chihiro Mukisaki. Now, remember in chapter 3 when Chihiro is a programmer and stuff? Yeah, that wasn't a green light. That was actually Chihiro's computer. We actually learned by Kyoko that this is a super modified computer AI made by Chihiro Mukisaki. And this was kind of his legacy left behind after he died, which is very smart of him, by the way, to be honest. Now, the funny thing about Alter Ego is that he can actually morph into characters and talk like them and make them into AI. You know what Taka did with this? Yeah, no, he turned Super Saiyan and went to sauna. Okay.
But then Kyoko decides to set a rule where no one can touch Alter Ego at nighttime. And you want to know who broke this rule first?
Yeah, it was Fu, and Kyoko is the one that caught him, which is not surprising.
But a overall overview of what happened.
Since Kyoko and Hina discovered this is actually a very good tool that they can use against the mastermind. And maybe even the headmaster, which is very interesting for the plot and story of how Chihiro gets used. Like in the future, and his legacy continues on.